Alright, Spectre here, in support of hashtag expose Bill Gates, albeit it took place on the 13th. We're a little bit late, but nonetheless, we got a lot of material to support that and want to get that information out to you guys. We're going to cover quite a bit of stuff here, a lot of different areas in which Bill Gates practices his quote-unquote philanthropy. The first of which we're going to get into pertains to climate and geoengineering. So we get this article out of worldtruth.tv dating back to January of 2019. It says Bill Gates exposed for funding research, promotion of spraying geoengineered chemtrails. And yes, there's many different acronyms and names and that, obviously, that can be used for that, whether it be geoengineering, chemtrails, or aerosol injection spraying, whatever it is, it's all the same. The latest scam to enter the debate about so-called global warming involves spending billions of dollars to spray the atmosphere with tiny particulate matter for the alleged purpose of reflecting sunlight back into space, and thus cooling the planet. But research into this controversial practice of chemtrailing, quote-unquote, which has actually already been going on for quite some time now, is largely funded directly by Mr. Vaccine himself, the infamous Bill Gates. Yep, you got it. The UK's Guardian paper reports that Gates, who is a huge advocate of global intervention programs that forcibly affect large people groups, whether they like it or not, has been spending untold millions of dollars from his own personal fortune to fund research into geoengineering programs. These funds are being used to study things like how much it will cost every year to blast the skies with tiny particulates of sulfur dioxide, a toxic industrial byproduct linked to serious respiratory illnesses like asthma. Gates and his small cadre of allies, which include co-founder of Skype, Niklas Zennström, and owner of the Virgin Group Sir Richard Branson, reportedly spend exorbitant amounts of cash every year trying to push geoengineering initiatives across the globe. They claim that if nations like the U.S. will not cut greenhouse gas emissions by tremendous amounts, the spraying of toxic poisons into the atmosphere will be necessary to thwart impending disaster. The entire concept of geoengineering to save the planet is utter hogwash, of course. This is true not only because global warming itself has proven to be a man-made scam, but also because literally blocking sunlight for the stated purpose of reflecting the warmth of its rays back into space makes no logical or scientific sense. Geoengineering does, however, give unprecedented control over the world's weather patterns to a select few, allowing them to manipulate the environment for their own gain in the name of saving the planet. And blocking the sun's rays with tiny particulates also serves much more sinister purposes, like preventing humans from absorbing much-needed ultraviolet B rays from the sun, which are responsible for producing vitamin D in the body. All about making you sick, right? But while chemtrail advocates like Bill Gates act as though these poison plumes are a potential future intervention, evidence already points to the fact that chemtrails have already been in use for many years now. Be sure to check out the film, What in the World Are They Spraying?, for more shocking information about chemtrails below. And there we have that link as well. Okay, so switching gears now over to the connections between Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein. Obviously, last year we learned quite a bit about Epstein, but one of the surprise things that we learned, obviously from the flight logs, was that none other than Bill Gates' name appeared on there. So we get this out of Natural News. The Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein connection goes deeper, as both shared interest in eugenics. And of course, if you know anything about Bill Gates and his family history, you know that his father was also involved in eugenics dating back to the days of old Margaret Sanger, World War II type time frame, right? This, again, from September 22nd, 2019, it goes on to state, what in the world would Microsoft billionaire Bill Gates want with a convicted pedophile named Jeffrey Epstein? The disgraced Epstein had already been convicted of 2 counts of soliciting underage girls for prostitution before he met Gates. Still, Epstein's influence in the world of billionaires remained. Flight logs show that Bill Gates flew privately with Epstein in 2013, long after Epstein was a known trafficker of young women. In one meeting, Bill Gates flew privately with Epstein to his infamous Palm Beach mansion, where several abuses had been reported over the years. The two were so cozy that Epstein ultimately listed Bill Gates' former chief scientific advisor, Boris Nikolic, as an alternative executor to his final will. The biotech entrepreneur was quote-unquote shocked when this was revealed just days after Epstein's alleged prison suicide. The Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein connections so far. And again, mind you, this article dates back to September of last year. A spokesman for Bill Gates denies any business relationship with Epstein, but the flight records shared biotech interests, and the internal emails don't lie. These two men had more in common than meets the eye. Both had shared interest in eugenics, a perverted form of science that seeks to genetically enhance the human population by getting rid of undesirables. Eugenics is about controlling human reproduction to breed the most desirable genetic characteristics. Bill Gates openly talks about depopulation, and Jeffrey Epstein was infatuated with creating a genetically superior race, using his own semen to impregnate select women. According to scientists who spoke with the child sex predator, Epstein expressed interest in impregnating up to 20 women at a time at his New Mexico ranch to create genetically superior babies from some of the most successful people in society. According to emails obtained exclusively by The New Yorker, Jeffrey Epstein directed Bill Gates to donate $2 million to a research lab in October 2014. MIT Media Lab directors handed over the emails, and they clearly connect Gates to Epstein. Suspiciously, Gates has previously denied any business relationship with Epstein. A Gates spokesperson told Business Insider, although Epstein pursued Bill Gates aggressively, any account of a business partnership or personal relationship between the two is categorically false. What else could Gates be lying about now? Is pedophilia just the beginning of evils among the most powerful men in the world? What kind of research were Epstein and Gates trying to fund? Why would billionaire Bill Gates take direction from Epstein in the first place? Why was Gates so influenced by Epstein that he would obey Epstein's research wishes to the tune of $2 million? I guess he got so much money in his philanthropy, you just kind of throw it around wherever, right? The Gates spokesperson that refuted a business relationship between the two also refuted the MIT emails, stating any claim that Epstein directed any programmatic or personal grant-making for Bill Gates is completely false. However, according to The New Yorker, MIT lab director Joi Ito and former director of development and strategy Peter Cohen worked hard to get anonymous donations from Epstein and allowed the pervert to influence how the money was spent. Epstein helped MIT Media Lab secure donations from investor Leon Black and Microsoft founder Bill Gates. The October 2014 email sent by lab director Ito clearly contradicts Gates' denial. It reads, "This is a $2 million gift from Bill Gates directed by Jeffrey Epstein." Cohen's follow-up email read, "For gift recording purposes, we will not be mentioning Jeffrey's name as the impetus for this gift." In another follow-up email, Epstein instructs Ito to come up with a lab write-up by request of Bill Gates. When Ito asked Epstein what kind of write-up was needed, Epstein replied, "More specific, so that he can fund." Epstein's influence and the lab write-up helped secure $7.5 million from Gates and Black. This revelation has led MIT's general counsel to conduct an internal investigation into the correspondence between MIT lab directors and Epstein. The Bill Gates-funded evil that is parading in broad daylight. This story isn't about Bill Gates being a pedophile, nor does it accuse him of doing wrong for interacting with Jeffrey Epstein. It does, however, bring light to the eugenics-founded population control scheme that Bill Gates is currently rolling out. It's called Stratospheric Controlled Perturbation Experiment, a geoengineering program that will inevitably alter the biosphere, cause food shortages, and eventual depopulation. Sounds an awful lot like the TED Talks from 2010, right? Stay tuned. Now, in order to get this research funded and implemented across the skies, the people have to be convinced that there is a problem that demands swift global intervention. This problem is sold to the public as climate change, and the answer for climate change that is now being accepted is a climate manipulation scheme called geoengineering. This Bill Gates funded geoengineering experiment is an evil form of genocide and population control, parading in broad daylight as science. This lovely science project, ScopeX, utilizes Gates's limitless funds and enlists Harvard University to replicate the effects of a volcanic disaster by spraying the stratosphere with particulate matter to block the sun. The experiment is supposed to replicate the 1815 Mount Tambora eruption, which filled the atmosphere with so much particulate matter everyone called it the year without a summer. Because all plants need sunlight and carbon dioxide for photosynthesis to occur, this dimming of the sun caused food crops to fail and people to starve. Is this what Bill Gates really wants? These depopulation efforts are no longer conspiracy. They are being carried out under the banner of saving the planet from climate change, and are being carried out by the world's richest, most powerful financiers. Alright, so still along the lines of Epstein, we find out this revelation out of Sputnik. Bill Gates regrets meeting with Jeffrey Epstein, calls it a mistake. So apparently after a number of articles that have come out, September, October, November timeframe, shortly after Epstein's death, all the revelations coming out, apparently Gates must have gotten a little remorseful. So we get this, dating back to November 7th of 2019. The two billionaires reportedly met several times in 2011, a couple of years after Epstein pleaded guilty and served a term for soliciting a minor, according to Gates' spokesperson. His only purpose was to discuss philanthropy. Microsoft founder and philanthropist Bill Gates stated on Wednesday that he made a mistake when deciding to meet sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein while raising money for his global health campaign. I made a mistake in judgment that I thought that those discussions would lead literally to billions of dollars going to global health. It turned out that was a bad judgment, Gates explained in a speech to the New York Times DealBook conference. And I gave him some benefit by the association, so I made a doubly wrong mistake there. Made a little mistake, huh, Gates? Wonder if you made any other mistakes here recently, or in the past, or is this just one of many? And of course, there we see United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Geoffrey Berman, speaks during a news conference in New York Monday, July 8, 2019. Federal prosecutors announced sex trafficking and conspiracy charges against wealthy financier Jeffrey Epstein. The court docs unsealed Monday show Epstein is charged with creating and maintaining a network that allowed him to sexually exploit and abuse dozens of underage girls. The statement comes in the wake of a new scandal around the late businessman after a reporter was recorded condemning an ABC News decision to turn down her interview with an Epstein accuser years ago for not meeting airing standards. Epstein was arrested in 2019 and charged with multiple cases of sex trafficking of minors that reportedly took place from the early to mid-2000s. The issue sparked a major scandal as the billionaire had numerous rich and powerful acquaintances during the years, including ex-President Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew, the second son of Queen Elizabeth II. However, despite all the accusations, Epstein pleaded not guilty. After coming off suicide watch, he was found dead in his temporary cell in New York on the 10th of August 2019, or reports claimed he hanged himself. Numerous media outlets suggested that Epstein might have been killed by people involved in his illegal activity in order to stop the investigation. So there you have it. Just quick and dirty on that. Apparently a little remorse. Made a double bad mistake there, right? All right. Alright, so switching gears. Aside from Epstein, Gates had connections to our other favorite friend above the Clintons and everybody else, old Georgie boy, George Soros. And we get this out of G. Edward Griffin's Need to Know. Contact tracing group funded by George Soros and Bill Gates, Chelsea Clinton on the board of trustees. This dating back recently to May 14th of 2020. And of course, this is fresh around the COVID-19 business net that we know and have come to learn so much about. Partners in Health, a contact tracing company, lists both George Soros Open Society Foundation and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation as official partners and supporters who contributed $1 million or more, according to a 2015 annual report. Chelsea Clinton serves on Partners in Health's Board of Trustees. Partners in Health was founded by Jim Kim, who is now the president of the UN World Bank, and Paul Farmer, whose health programs have been funded in the past by Soros. Democrat representatives Bobby Rush introduced H.R. 6666, the COVID-19 Trace Act, that authorizes the federal government to grant approved entities the right to conduct contact tracing for coronavirus as, quote, individuals' residences. Contact tracing involves investigators tracing every interaction that infected people have. And aside from that, we'll just call that Welcome to 1984. Partners in Health was recently selected by Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker to conduct coronavirus contact tracing, a process that involves teams of investigators find out who infected people have come into contact with. The group is already training and deploying hundreds of contact tracers. Some citizens fear the potential for mass surveillance posed by contact tracing, especially in light of a Democrat-introduced bill in Congress to authorize contact tracing at individuals' residences. Partners in Health's involvement will not assuage many fears, considering the group has received funding from George Soros and Bill Gates organizations and counts Chelsea Clinton on its board of trustees. Partners in Health lists George Soros Open Society Foundation as an official partner, along with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Partners in Health lists Open Society Foundations on its 2015 annual report as a supporter to the tune of $1 million or above, along with the Gates Foundation. Chelsea Clinton serves on the Partners in Health Board of Trustees according to its 2019 annual report. And of course, you can click on those links to find the PDFs of that. Partners in Health co-founder Paul Farmer's Achievement.org bio notes Farmer's work attracted the support of philanthropists including George Soros and Bill and Melinda Gates. In 2002, PIH received a $13 million grant from the Global Fund for improvements in the Cange complex. In 2005, the William J. Clinton Foundation funded a Partners in Health AIDS program in Rwanda. Farmer and Chelsea Clinton did a Clinton Foundation podcast together in 2019. In response, a 2007 tuberculosis outbreak in Africa, NBC News reported. Soros Open Society Institute announced a $3 million grant to the nonprofit organization Partners in Health and Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. The donation will be used to design a model project of community-based XDR-TB treatment in Lesotho. Once treatment guidelines are developed, experts hope the program will be adopted in other poor countries. Soros personally announced the grant and said he hoped it would spark a larger project for this initiative. Partners in Health was cited by name in the propaganda book The Philanthropy of George Soros, Building Open Societies. And of course you can read the full article there at National File. So there you have it, yet another connection that Bill Gates has to none other than one of our old-time favorites, old Georgie Schwartz. Yep. Alright, so switching gears yet again, talking about vaccines now. A pretty healthy area of a lot of research and that I've got in the old archives. Of course, if you know anything about Bill Gates, he's been pushing this vaccine business worldwide. Got himself in a little bit of hot water in India as a result, and that we get this out of Natural News. Indian doctors sue Bill Gates for harming children with deadly quote-unquote humanitarian vaccines. This article goes back to December 10th of 2015. If Monsanto, the most evil corporation in the world, were a person, his name would be Bill Gates. Yes, the Microsoft founder turned icon of third world humanitarianism is an absolute crook, and an utterly vile one at that. Reports indicate that Gates' many crimes against humanity in the form of illegal vaccine testing on innocent children are finally being addressed in a new lawsuit filed by the Indian government, which seeks to stop this demon of death from killing any more babies. The Supreme Courts of India are currently conducting an extensive investigation into the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation devious actions abroad, which mainly involve testing deadly vaccines on poor, and oftentimes illiterate, children in developing nations without informed consent. According to Health Impact News, the case focuses specifically on illicit human experimentation that occurred with the two available vaccines for HPV, Cervarix, which is by GlaxoSmithKline or GSK, and Gardasil via Merck and Company. Back in 2009, the Gates Foundation quietly funded trials of Gardasil on some 16,000 tribal school children living in Andhra Pradesh, India. According to a report published in Economic Times India back in August, many of the children fell violently ill not long after receiving the vaccine, and at least 5 of them died. In a separate trial of Cervarix that took place around the same time, also funded by the Gates Foundation, an estimated 14,000 tribal children in Vadodara, Gujarat, were vaccinated for HPV. The result of this trial was 2 children dead and possibly hundreds of others severely injured. In both trials, many of the consent forms used were obviously forged, and many of the children's illiterate parents were coerced into signing consent forms with their thumbprints, not really know what they were doing. A petition condemning these atrocious crimes against humanity notes that the Gates Foundation, as well as the World Health Organization and the Program for Appropriate Technology and Health, PATH for short, both of which supported the trials, were criminally negligent for testing deadly vaccines on a vulnerable, uneducated, and under-informed population of school administrators, students, and their parents, who were not provided informed consent or advised of potential adverse effects. And that seems to probably be just fine by old Bill and Melinda Gates, right? The less they know, the better. It wasn't until a non-governmental organization known as SAMA began investigating the 2 trials that these Nazi-like experiments on human beings were finally brought to light. But none of the controlled media in the U.S., or anywhere else in the West for that matter, agreed to cover it. The only country that took notice was India, which is now seeking justice against Gates and his band of vaccine terrorists. And real quick on that point about dating back to the Nazi-like experiments, I think the Nuremberg trials basically prohibited that worldwide. And yet here we are. Gates Foundation also responsible for killing kids with untested meningitis, polio, and 5-in-1 pentavalent vaccines. Sadly, this isn't the only time that Gates and his crew were found to have committed evil acts against the world's most vulnerable. In December 2012, 5 children in the small town of Goro, Chad, were forcibly vaccinated with a meningitis A vaccine that was still in trials and not even approved for commercial use. The children were told if they didn't agree to the vaccine, which was administered without parental consent, they would not be allowed to receive any further education. And again in 2013, both the Gates Foundation and Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, were exposed for forcing untested polio vaccines and 5-in-1 pentavalent vaccines on innocent children in Pakistan. Many of the children developed so-called non-polio acute flaccid paralysis, or NPAFP, which reports indicate is twice as deadly as polio itself. More on the Gates Foundation extensive legacy of killing children with vaccines is available here at facttruth.com. Okay, so out of big league politics, we get this. Trump administration opposes Bill Gates vaccine tracking system on personal liberty grounds. This by Shane Trejo on April 10th of this year. Again, as the COVID stuff has unfolded, we've gotten a lot of revelations, especially with the contact tracing, and Bill Barr had a little bit of something to say about that. The Trump administration has come out against a proposed digital tracking system that could tell authorities about an individual's vaccination history. The Orwellian measure has been proposed by technocratic oligarch Bill Gates, who is attempting to exploit the coronavirus pandemic to inch closer toward mandatory vaccinations. Eventually, we will have some digital certificates to show who has recovered or been tested recently, or when we have a vaccine, who has received it, Gates said during an Ask Me Anything appearance on Reddit about the coronavirus. Attorney General Bill Barr is skeptical of Gates' idea to tag people with these Mark of the Beast implants. He said he is concerned about the tracking of people and so forth, generally, especially going forward over a long period of time. Barr also said that he is very concerned about the slippery slope in terms of continuing encroachments on personal liberty. However, Barr said he did feel like appropriate, reasonable steps are fine. This leaves the door open for some sort of government action in order to enforce vaccine compliance. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation bankrolled research by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology that advocated essentially tattooing vaccine data directly into the skin of children. Along with the vaccine, a child would be injected with a bit of dye that isn't invisible to the naked eye, but easily seen with a special cell phone filter, combined with an app that shines near-infrared light into the skin. This dye would be expected to last up to 5 years, according to tests on pig and rat skin and human skin in a dish. A December 2019 Scientific American article wrote about Gates' scheme. Gates has been aggressively propagandizing on behalf of vaccines throughout the coronavirus pandemic. He has made it clear that he wants countless shots administered to supposedly stop the spread of coronavirus. Our foundation works a lot on diagnostics and vaccines, Gates said during a recent interview with CBS News. He added that vaccine makers are the only entities that can really get things back on track where we're not worried about large public gatherings. Well, never mind the Antifa and BLM things. Don't worry about those. But hey, Trump rallies on the other hand, we can't be doing that. Gates said that there's a lot of dialogue between our foundation experts and the government about how to get the world back to normal using his vaccines. Which activities, like schools, have such benefit and can be done in a way that the risk of transmission is very low, and which activities, like mass gatherings, may be, in a certain sense, more optional. And so, until you're widely vaccinated, those may not come back at all, he said. This all comes back to Gates' primary goal with his foundation and its funding: depopulation. Now, if we do a really good job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we lower the population by perhaps 10 or 15%, he said in a 2010 TED, the Technology, Entertainment, and Design conference. Gates could not have planned a crisis any better than the coronavirus panic to push his vaccination and depopulation agendas. So, still continuing on vaccinations, we get this article out of Green Med Info, which is a fairly good site for Sayer G followers, who himself, I believe, and many of the testimonials net that he was part of Vaccines Revealed, I believe, as well as The Truth About Cancer, himself having been vaccine damaged in the past. Got a lot of great info. So we get this article dating back to April 14th of this year, 2020. Bill Gates and Intellectual Ventures funds microchip implant vaccine technology. Says the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has donated more than $21 million towards developing a vaccine technology that uses a tattoo-like mechanism which injects invisible nanoparticles under the skin that is now being tested in a vaccine against the virus that causes COVID-19. The microneedle technology is also being wed to the injectable technology, funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which embeds under the skin a vaccination record visible by near-infrared light that can be read by smartphone technology. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is funding the technologies which aims to enable them in house-to-house vaccine campaigns undertaken by people with minimal training. Researchers from the University of Pittsburgh reported in their study, published April 1st in eBiomedicine, a Lancet journal, that their microneedle patch vaccine against the SARS-CoV-2 virus that causes COVID-19 prompted robust antibody production in the mice within 2 weeks. The patches resemble a spiky piece of Velcro with hundreds of tiny microneedles made of sugar. The needles prick just into the skin and quickly dissolve, releasing the vaccine into the tiny abrasions and inducing a potent immune cell response despite the minute amount of the vaccine material, far more potent than an intramuscular injection. The researchers had been testing vaccine using the microneedle patch for other coronaviruses, including the one that causes Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, or MERS, and reported that 3 different experimental MERS vaccines induced the production of antibodies against the virus. These responses were stronger than the responses generated by regular injection of one of the vaccines along with a powerful immune stimulant, an adjuvant. Antibody levels continued to increase over time in mice vaccinated by a microneedle patch up to 55 weeks, when the experiments ended. The researchers have now turned their technology to the COVID-19 virus, or the SARS-CoV-2. Testing in patients would typically require at least a year, and probably longer, senior co-author of the study, dermatology professor Louise Fallow, said. This particular situation is different from anything we've ever seen, so we don't know how long the clinical development process will take. Recently announced revisions to the normal processes suggest we may be able to advance this faster. Another study, funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and published in December 2019 by researchers from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the Institute of Chemistry of the Chinese Academy of Sciences in Beijing, and the Global Good, Intellectual Ventures Laboratory in Bellevue, Washington, describe how near-infrared quantum dots can be implanted under the skin along with a vaccine to encode information for decentralized data storage and biosensing. Well, that sounds exciting, right? No mark of the beast there. To maximize the utility of this technology for vaccination campaigns, we aim to create a platform compatible with microneedle-delivered vaccines that could reliably encode data on an individual for at least 5 years after administration, said the MIT paper titled Biocompatible Near-Infrared Quantum Dots Delivered to the Skin by Microneedle Patches Record Vaccination. In addition, this system also needed to be highly biocompatible, deliver a sufficient amount of dye after an application time of 2 minutes or less, and be detectable using a minimally adaptive smartphone. Friedrich Laursen, an author of the microchip study, is from the Global Good Intellectual Ventures Laboratory. Its website features Microsoft founder Bill Gates on its front page and describes itself as a collaboration between Bill Gates and Intellectual Ventures, a company founded by Nathan Myhrvold and Edward Jung of Microsoft. Wikipedia describes Intellectual Ventures in Gates' home state as a private American company that centers on the development and licensing of intellectual property, and one of the top 5 owners of U.S. patents as of 2011. Oh, so there's already a patent on it. There you go. Its business model has a focus on buying patents and aggregating them into a larger patent portfolio and licensing these patents to third parties, according to Wikipedia. The company is also described as the country's largest and most notorious patent trolling company, the ultimate patent troll, and the most hated company in tech. So apparently, old Bill Gates knows how to really pick 'em. Outstanding. The website of the Bill and Melinda Gates lists multiple grants awarded to develop the microneedle array patch for use in house-to-house campaigns via administration by minimally trained personnel. The most recent grant for $370,035 was awarded in February 2020 to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention for an MMR vaccine patch that does not require refrigeration and, quote, enables house-to-house campaigns, end quote, via people without medical experience or training. Bill Gates has awarded much larger grants for microneedle array patch technology to companies and organizations, including Vaxis Pty Ltd in Brisbane, Queensland, $4.99 million in November 2019, to develop a microneedle array patch for measles and rubella vaccination that enables house-to-house campaigns via administration by minimally trained personnel. Vaxis was created in 2011 after Mark Kendall's research group at the University of Queensland commercialized the nanotechnology under the company UniQuest. The company has raised more than $35 million for the nanotechnology. It's partnered with vaccine manufacturer Merck, a company whose drug, Vioxx, caused more than 27,000 deaths by heart attack before the company revealed the risks it had hidden from the public. Merck has repeatedly been accused by judges for egregious ethical breaches and of improper testing and data falsification of its Gardasil, HPV, and MMR vaccines Merck made. Micron Biomedical, Inc., $6,744,906 November 2019, to develop a microneedle array patch for measles and rubella vaccination that enables house-to-house campaigns via administration by minimally trained personnel. Georgia Institute of Technology, $958,849 in December 2019, to develop a microneedle array patch for measles and rubella vaccination that enables house-to-house campaigns via administration by minimally trained personnel. Vaxis, Inc., $2,967,741 in November 2016 in Boston, Massachusetts, to, quote, support the preclinical development and manufacture of a thermostable microneedle patch with the aim of lowering barriers to vaccine access by simplifying dosing and administration, alleviating cold chain constraints, and lowering costs. Cardiff University, $3,570,376 in December 2019 to, quote, develop a dissolvable microneedle array patch for the sustained dermal delivery of a progestin contraceptive, including the conduct of preclinical proof of concept studies. Gates began funding the implantable biotechnology back in 2011 via a small $100,000 grant to the Santa Cruz-based company Transderm, Inc., whose LinkedIn page links to a website for the pharmaceutical giant Allergan. Last month, Reuters news service reported, falsely, that a popular Facebook post about Bill Gates planning to use microchip implants to fight the coronavirus pandemic was a false claim. The news service linked to the censored Facebook post. Gates, whose father was the director of Planned Parenthood Federation of America and mother worked for PPFA, funding affiliate United Way, has been noted for his population control ideology. His wife, Melinda Gates, launched a family planning summit at World Population Day in 2012 with the aim of garnering tax dollars from governments to expand reproductive health services aimed at lowering the global birth rate. And there you go. Alright, so still on the topic of vaccinations. Told you this was going to be a large section here. And again, this is just a small snippet of the stuff I got in the old archives here. So hopefully you've enjoyed it thus far. And take good care of this information. I'll show you where to find it here shortly. And of course, you guys can disperse accordingly. So this comes out of Great Game, India. Bill Gates offered $10 million bribe for forced vaccination in Nigeria. This here recently on May 12th of 2020. Based on an intercepted human intelligence report, a controversy has erupted in Nigeria, whereby it is revealed that Bill Gates offered a $10 million bribe for a forced vaccination program for coronavirus to the Nigerian House of Representatives. The opposition political parties rejected the foreign-sponsored bill, mandating the compulsory vaccination of all Nigerians even when the vaccines have not been discovered, and demanded the Speaker be impeached if he forces the bill on members. Maybe we should take a lesson from Nigeria about our own legislators and House Resolution 6666, right? The development comes a month after Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the nephew of former American President John F. Kennedy, in a lengthy piece exposed Bill Gates' agenda in India and his obsession with vaccines. Just a couple days later, now an Italian politician has demanded the arrest of Bill Gates in the Italian parliament. Sara Cuniel, the member of parliament for Rome, denounced Bill Gates as a vaccine criminal and urged the Italian president to hand him over to the International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity. She also exposed Bill Gates' agenda in India and Africa, along with the plans to chip the human race throughout the Digital Identification Program, ID 2020. And here we got an update. Tanzania kicked out WHO after goat and papaya samples came COVID-19 positive. Days after the Tanzanian move, Burundi also kicked out the entire World Health Organization coronavirus team from the country for interference in internal matters. Meanwhile, in a shocking development, the president of Madagascar has made a sensational claim that the World Health Organization offered $20 million bribe to poison COVID-19 cure. Looks like WHO's days in Africa are over. Says the Nigerian Coalition of United Political Parties, CUPP, on Monday alleged that it has intercepted a human intelligence report that the Nigeria House of Representatives leadership was poised to forcefully pass the compulsory vaccine bill without subjecting it to the traditions of legislative proceedings. In a statement issued and signed by the spokesperson of the opposition political parties, Barrister Ikenga Imo Ugochukwu, in Abuja on Monday, the body urged lawmakers in the lower chamber to rise against impunity. The body in the statement alleged that a sum of $10 million was offered by the American computer czar Bill Gates to influence a speedy passage of the bill without recourse to legislative public hearing, a development they averted as anachronistic, adding that the Speaker, Femi Gbajabiamila, should be impeached if he forces the bill on members. And here we got a tweet via Great Game India, says must read Bill Gates' agenda in India exposed by Robert Kennedy Jr., the nephew of former American President John F. Kennedy, after RFK's granddaughter and her son were found dead in suspicious circumstances. So there's a link to that article you can check out from April 13th. The statement, as published by the Nigerian Daily Post, read, Opposition Coalition, CUPP, has intercepted very credible intelligence and hereby alerts Nigerians of plans by the leadership of the House of Representatives led by Femi Gbajabiamila to forcefully and without adherence to the rules of lawmaking to pass the Control of Infectious Diseases Bill 2020, otherwise known as the Compulsory Vaccination Bill, which is proposing a compulsory vaccination of all Nigerians, even when the vaccines have not been discovered. This intelligence is coupled with the information of the alleged receipt from sources outside the country, but very interested in the bill of the sum of $10 million by the sponsors and promoters of the bill to distribute among lawmakers to ensure a smooth passage of the bill. And here we got a quick little video on that you can check out here via Money Loot. Says this will manifest in a wishy-washy public hearing, which the promoters still insist on canceling under the pretext of containment of the spread of the coronavirus. The intelligence is that the House will, under whatever guise, pass the bill tomorrow, the 5th of May 2020, upon resumption. The Nigerian opposition rejects the bill and urges opposition lawmakers in the House of Representatives to confront the Speaker of the House with these facts tomorrow at plenary and resist every plan to illegally pass the bill. And another tweet by Great Game India there says exclusive. The investigations by @GreatGameIndia India uncovers the hashtag deep state collaborations between American and Chinese biotechs at the forefront of hashtag coronavirus vaccine development, marketed worldwide by an entity called Unitaid, which I think we've heard of before and, ties back to none other than Fauci. We have been informed that the alleged deal on that passage of the bill was struck during a trip to Austria a few months back, while the financial support for the promotion of the bill was allegedly received last week to mobilize for a push, leading to the hurried attempts to pass the bill by any means necessary. Nigerians are reminded that at present there is no discovered/approved vaccine anywhere in the world, and one now begins to wonder why the hurry to pass a bill for a compulsory vaccine when there is none. What if the world eventually does not find a vaccine or cure for coronavirus, just like it has not found a cure for HIV/AIDS? What is the hurry in passing a bill based on speculation? Or is there anything else the leadership of the House would want to tell Nigerians? Is this bill what will stop the mass deaths and infections rising in Lagos, Kano, Abuja, Gombe, Borno, Kaduna, Ogun, Bauchi, and indeed all over the country? Is this bill going to revive and grow the economy and reduce hunger and give us more testing kits or bed spaces? Is this bill going to stop the stealing of palliatives meant for poor and vulnerable Nigerians? Is it true that all these noises for the bill is all for the alleged 10 million? The leadership of the House needs to start speaking now on why the hurry when there are a lot of urgent bills to be passed, which are not being attended to. Where is the bill to make the wearing of face masks compulsory now that the federal government has, against all wisdom, insisted on easing the lockdown, and the people have trooped out already without obeying the health regulations that will make them safe? Here we got another tweet via Great Game India. Says Indian doctors blame hashtag Bill Gates campaign for a devastating non-polio acute flaccid paralysis epidemic that paralyzed 490,000 children. In 2017, India dialed back Gates' vaccine regimen and asked Gates and his vaccine policies to leave India. Of course, you can check that article out as well. What are the economic revival bills to protect jobs and vulnerable Nigerian workers whose livelihoods are threatened daily by this pandemic? Where are the bills to compel the federal government to look inwards and encourage emergency research for the manufacture of essentials like test kits, ventilators, personal protective equipment, vaccines, drugs, masks, sanitizers, etc.? All opposition lawmakers should prove they are not part of the evil or partakers of the financial inducement and confront Speaker Femi to come clean. Let all parliamentary rules be dropped and opposition members should turn the House upside down using their parliamentary privilege, if that is what it takes to stop the foreign-sponsored bill. Why make a law for a vaccine that has not been discovered? Does it mean that the FEMI and the promoters have an idea of the vaccine and when it will be ready? When nations like Madagascar are making local remedies, which is working, APC is making a law to compulsorily inject Nigerians with vaccines our former slave masters have not yet discovered. The plan to push the passing of the bill is evil. The Nigerian Center for Disease Control did not make any contributions to the drafting of the bill and has even told FEMI to suspend the bill as the timing is very wrong. But Mr. Femi, we'll call him, believes he can secure the silence and acquiescence of the NCDC with all the legal powers been provided for the NCDC in the bill, hence he still wants to push ahead with its passage. Here we get another tweet. Great Game India says how hashtag Bill Gates infiltrated the global health. Another good article for you to check out there. Like we told the federal government before, do not bring Chinese doctors, shut our external borders, do not ease the lockdown, do not relax Kano lockdown, and they refused to heed the wise counsel, preferring to play myopic politics with the lives of Nigerians. Today, the community transmission is getting worse, and it is almost even confirmed that the so-called strange deaths in Kano of hundreds of citizens is a result of the COVID-19. We are saying loudly again and calling on the House of Representatives to suspend the Control of Infectious Disease bill and wait for proper input and scrutiny after the pandemic and charge all efforts towards giving the needed support to reduce the spread and find a homegrown solution. You mean like hydroxychloroquine, perhaps? But hey, I guess that's probably a dirty word. Meanwhile, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Femi, has set up a 12-man committee to look into the above allegations that himself and some members of the House collected a $10 million bribe from a foreign sponsor to see to the speedy passage of the Control of Infectious Diseases bill. And so there you have it in that regard. Obviously, people are quick to get the vaccines and that pushed, legislated on the books, and none would be the wiser, right? So there you go.